Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel again. I'm your host Ian, and today we're tackling the transformation of the auto sector in the 80s and the 90s. Specifically, how trade deals like the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement and NAFTA slowly wound down the groundbreaking 1965 Auto Pact, sparking a wave of integration across North America. Let's jump into it. Picture this. It's the mid 1960s, and Canada's auto industry is stuck in a tough spot. We're producing cars, of course, yeah, but tariffs with the US means everything costs more. Exports are a hassle, and our plants are running below capacity. Enter the Canada-U.S. Automotive Products Agreement, or the Auto Pact as most of us know it as. A deal signed on January 16, 1965 by Prime Minister Lester B. Peterson and President Lyndon B. Johnson in the sleepy town of Campobello. This wasn't just any trade handshake. It eliminated tariffs on cars, trucks, and parts between our two countries, creating a seamless North American market. But crucially, it included safeguards for Canada. Automakers had to keep or grow production here in proportion to sales in Canada. No more flooding our market with cheap US imports without investing back home. The impact was incredible. Before the Pact, Canada churned out about 400,000 vehicles a year, with around 50,000 jobs in the sector. By 1970, production had tripled to over 1.1 million units, and employment doubled to 100,000, mostly in southwestern Ontario's Ottawa Valley. From Windsor to Oshawa, parts makers for vehicles boomed too, supplying the integrated supply chains. Exports skyrocketed, turning autos into one of our top earners. It was a masterclass of economic policy, blending protection with openness, and it laid the foundations for what we'd become: a key player in North American manufacturing. Now, fast forward a little bit to the 1980s, and the world started to shift under our feet. Global competition really started to heat up. Japan flooded markets with efficient, affordable cars. Recession hit us in the 81-82 era, slamming auto sales. Then came the big trade pivots, the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement in 1988, followed by NAFTA in 1994, pulling Mexico into the fold. These deals built on the Auto Pact's integration, but dialed back those Canadian safeguards. The Pact's production ratios, well, they phased out by 1996 under NAFTA's rule of origin, which required more North American content in vehicles to qualify for duty-free trade. No longer could we count on forced investment. Now it was all about market forces, efficiency, and competing on a continent-wide stage. This transition was by no means painless. Early on, there were layoffs, tens of thousands in the early 80s recessions alone, as plants idled and smaller suppliers struggled against imports. In Ontario, communities like Windsor felt the pinch hard. Ford's Essex engine plant cut shifts, and parts firms in import competing areas really took a beating. Jobs relocated too, some south to the US for cheaper labor, and later to Mexico under NAFTA's lower costs. By the mid-90s, we'd see assembly lines consolidated, with Canada focusing on trucks and SUVs where we had strength, while sedans started to shift elsewhere. But here's the twist. Amid the pain came real gains. Efficiency soared. Output per worker in Canadian assembly plants jumped dramatically. From the mid-80s onward, thanks to automation, lean manufacturing, and just-in-time supply chains under the FTA and NAFTA era. Annual employment growth clocked in at 2.4%, slower than the Auto Pact's 3.3% boom, but still steady. And production, well, it exploded. From about 1.4 million vehicles in 1980, we hit 2.3 million by 1990 and peaked at over 3 million in 1999. The year Ontario edged out Michigan as North America's top auto producer. Exports followed suit, with auto trade between Canada and the US alone topping $100 billion by the late 90s. Supply chains integrated deeply. A truck rolling off the line in Oakville might have engines from Mexico, transmissions from Indiana, and wiring from Windsor, all duty-free, all efficient. Restructuring reshaped the sector entirely. Assembly plants modernized. Think GM's Cambridge facility in Ontario getting retooled for flexible lines that could switch from cars to crossovers overnight. Part suppliers consolidated into bigger, tech-savvy operations, feeding just-in-time delivery across the border. Export-oriented hubs like Southern Ontario really thrived at all of this, with Windsor's minivan dominance and Oshawa's truck output driving local economies. But import competing areas, like some Quebec parts clusters, faced steeper challenges. Closures there outpaced gains elsewhere. Nationally, though, the math worked out. Despite early layoffs, the industry added net jobs through the 90s, hitting around 160,000 by 1989 before stabilizing around 150,000. Now, taking a step towards real estate like I often do, those trade shifts didn't just move jobs around. They transformed land use and our manufacturing heartlands. Outdated factories from the pre-Pact era, inefficient for the new integrated model, got repurposed into modern properties or mixed-use spaces. Take Southern Ontario. In Windsor, the old McGregor Ford plant, once a sprawling assembly site from the 1920s, saw parts of its footprint evolved into commercial zones after scaling back in the 80s. Today, that area's industrial parks mix auto suppliers with logistical hubs, drawing investors for their proximity to the border. Head on up to Quebec, and the story is even more dramatic. The St. Terrace GM assembly plant, Quebec's only major auto line when it opened in 1967, built Camaros and Firebirds for decades. But as NAFTA integrated production, it closed in 1987 amid restructuring, laying off 2,500 workers and gutting the local economy. Fast forward a little bit, the 200-acre site in Boisbriand got redeveloped into a thriving mixed-use community. We're talking big box retail like Walmart and Costco, office towers, and thousands of residential units, condos, townhomes, even green spaces. Property values there have climbed steadily, turning a factory ghost town into a suburban draw. Similar things have happened in St. Catharines in Ontario, where GM's old components plant is eyed for a $250 million mixed-use redo. Though environmental cleanups remind us it's not always a smooth sailing and easy thing to do. Southern Ontario saw industrial land values rise 20 to 30% in the 90s as modern facilities replaced relics, attracting real estate investment trusts like automotive properties that snap up dealership and service sites. In Quebec, places like Boisbriand show how mixed use fill the void, boosting multifamily demand and commercial rents. For investors and homebuyers, it's a reminder that these shifts create pockets of value and opportunities. Warehouses flipping to lofts, brownfields to business parks. If you're eyeing properties in these zones, the history of adaptation means upside potential, especially with all these EVs pulling new investments in today. Wrapping this all up, the end of the Auto Pact wasn't an obituary for Canadian autos. It was really more of a rebirth. Trade deals forced tough decisions, but they unlocked efficiency, growth, and a truly continental industry that still employs over 120,000 people today. We trade some jobs for smarter ones, some old plants for vibrant communities. It's a classic Canadian tale, resilience through reinvention, with real estate riding the wave. That's all I got for today, folks. Thanks for joining me on Canada's Auto Adventure. I'll catch you on the next one.